So while I was having fun on Tuesday playing through the Taken King story, I took a peek at the Destiny subreddit to see what everyone else thought about the DLC so far. And while I was looking through it, I came across a few threads from people saying that they have nothing to do in Destiny anymore because they didn't buy the Taken King DLC. And that's for a variety of reasons, but let's start with the most obvious and expected one. The weekly activities. We all saw that in the past, every time Bungie releases a new expansion, the weekly strike is from the DLC. So of course, if you didn't buy the DLC, you can't play the weekly strikes that week, and more importantly, you can't obtain those rewards from those weekly activities. Now, many have suggested in the past that Bungie should offer an alternative weekly strike for those that didn't buy the DLC, but of course, they never did that. So in the past, you would have to wait until the next week in order to run the weekly when it was a strike that you had access to. So for example, when the Dark Below dropped, you couldn't run the Nightfall that week if you didn't buy the DLC because it was the Omnigul strike, but you could run it the next week if it was the Fogoth strike, for example. But this time around, that isn't the case. If you don't buy the Taken King, you will never be able to run the Nightfall again, period. And that's because the delta between level 34 and level 40 with light level 280 is way too big, so completing the strike is now impossible without the Taken King. Now more than ever, non-DLC buyers, aka people who just purchased the House of Wolves a few months ago, need a separate Nightfall for them to do. But we know that they aren't gonna get that, and that's because Bungie and Activision want to sell the Taken King to as many people as possible. And you know, that goal itself isn't evil. If I was a gaming publisher, I'd want to sell as many copies of my new DLC as possible as well, but I would not make my customers' previous purchase obsolete in order to do so. The problem here is not the goal, but the means by which Bungie Vision seeks to attain that goal. And it's not just the weekly strikes either. Just take a look at the Vanguard strike playlists. There's only 3 now. The other playlists like the Tiger, Rock, and Dragon have been removed. Now there's 2 new strike playlists for the Taken King buyers, a level 36 and a level 41. And now there's only 1 playlist for anyone who didn't buy it, a level 20 playlist. Now there may be a reasonable explanation for this. With every new DLC, Bungie makes a new strike playlist. Rock came with the Dark Below, and Dragon came with the House of Wolves. At some point, I'd imagine that Bungie would need to condense these playlists because there would be a few for the vanilla game and then 1 for each DLC, and that would hurt the overall strike experience because the playlist populations would be a lot lower per playlist. So they would need to condense them in order to have proper playlist populations for each playlist to ensure good connections, low matchmaking times, and being matched with similarly leveled players. But in this case, they didn't just condense the playlists in order to preserve the experience. No, they straight up ripped those playlists out of the game and left you with some dinky ass level 20 strike playlists. And I want to make something perfectly clear here. This level 20 strike playlist serves no purpose other than to slap you in the face if you haven't dropped $40 on the new DLC. It's not there for your enjoyment, and it's not there to help the newer players out either. If someone had just purchased the Legendary Edition of Destiny, then they have a bunch of ways to level up other than playing those strikes. It will only take a few missions to go from level 20 to level 25 so that they can start playing the Taken King missions. Also, new players will get that spark of light to instantly level their character to level 25 anyways, so they can totally bypass that playlist and go straight to Taken King missions and get way better gear than what they would have gotten in that playlist. Honestly, I think it would have been a lot better for everyone involved if Bungie had just made that a level 30 playlist. But once again, they don't want to give you something to do, they want to make your product obsolete so that you can buy the new expansion. And look, I understand that the new stuff in the Taken King can't be free for everyone. Even though that'd be awesome and it would totally make up for all the shit they've done in the past, that's a little unrealistic. But don't fuck with the content that people have already paid for. That's totally unfair, and it's a terrible business practice. I mean, imagine if Apple disabled certain features on your phone when their next phone comes out to make you feel inclined to buy a new one. People would go nuts because that's fucked up. Or maybe you buy a car and next year when the new model comes out, they say, you know what, we're gonna take away your steering wheel because we put a better one in the new car. Buy that. It's absurd. Also, it's not just the PvE players that are getting screwed, the PvP players are getting boned too. Remember that new PvP mode called Trials of Osiris Bungie advertised with the House of Wolves? The super competitive mode that offered super sweet loot? Yeah, well kiss that shit goodbye, because if you didn't buy the Taken King, you won't be able to play that either, even though you paid for the House of Wolves DLC, which included that piece of content. The reason being, levels. Power advantages are enabled in Trials of Osiris, so you level 34s won't be able to compete with the level 40s with all the new gear. The reasonable thing to do in this situation would be to offer 2 two brackets of Trials of Osiris, one for Taken King buyers and one for those that didn't buy it. Will that happen? I don't know, we'll have to see, but if I had to put money on it, I'd say that there's only going to be one bracket, for those people who did buy the Taken King. There's a big problem with how Bungie Vision is handling their game and how they're communicating with the customer. They keep saying that Destiny is not an MMO, but in some ways it's being handled like it is. People bought this game and its DLCs thinking that they could access that content anytime they want like they could with a normal game. They didn't know that it would be stripped out of the game at a moment's notice if they didn't buy the latest DLC. And that's because Destiny is kind of on a pseudo subscription model. While they don't charge you every month to play Destiny, they will charge you a hefty sum every few months to keep on playing and to get some new content. It's basically a subscription based game, but they're not telling you that it is, because that would hurt the bottom line, because most console gamers do not want to get involved with a subscription. So they make it seem like when you buy the latest offering, you can access that content anytime you want. They make it seem like you own it, but you really don't, because at any time they can take your strike playlist out of there and they can block you from playing the weekly or Trials of Osiris. And if they want to do that, they should just be upfront about it and tell people that they'll only be able to access this content for a certain amount of time, because otherwise they're just being dishonest as fuck. And it's not just the content, think about all the new guns in the tower. They replaced the old guns. Those people who didn't buy the Taken King can no longer purchase those weapons anymore because they're simply unavailable. And of course they can't purchase any of the newer weapons, so that's a major aspect of Destiny gone. The loot is one of the main selling points of Destiny expansions because it's a loot and shoot game, and they take that away with every new DLC. I think it's crazy that people who have invested $100 into a video game can no longer access a majority of the content that they paid for only a year later. And you know, none of this even affects me, because I bought the Taken King. So why am I bitching about it? Well, because Bungie Vision is fucking with my fellow gamers, and that's that shit I don't like. And since I have a YouTube channel, I might as well make some noise about it to help them out. But what if you don't care about your fellow gamers? Well, one day it could be you on the short end of the stick. One day a company might pull some bullshit like this on you. If we don't draw the line somewhere, these companies will continue to fuck us, and they'll find new and more profitable ways to fuck us unless we say no. And we have to say no to this BS now. Bungie Vision thinks that they can get away with punishing people who don't buy the DLC by making their product near worthless. Prove them wrong. If I didn't have the Taken King right now, I have no idea what I'd be doing with Destiny at the moment. It is nearly unplayable because you've lost the bulk of the endgame content to do in Destiny. You can't run strikes, and you can't buy gear with marks anymore because, oops, they changed the mark system, so you can't buy shit. And who the hell is gonna have fun playing a level 20 strike playlist anyways? I mean, sure, you could run some Prison of Elders, but just because you can do that doesn't mean it's okay for Bungie to cut out big chunks of the game. I'm telling you, we really need to stand up to bullshit like this, because I promise you, if we don't, it will get worse. Companies will get more and more brazen with their tactics in order to milk us for everything we got. Look at how far gaming has slipped already. Don't let it slip anymore. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed the video and agreed with what I said, don't forget to smash that like button, and if you're not feeling too shy, drop a comment down below and let me know what you think about Bungie taking content out of the game for those people who didn't buy the Taken King DLC. And if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But that's it for me though, guys. Oh man, out!